Presidential candidate of Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, is visiting some markets in Lagos State to canvass support of market men and women ahead of the February the 25th presidential election. And from what we see so far, it seems he has the backing of some of these market men and women here. The presidential election is in the fortnight, and Mr. Peter Obi is shifting his campaign to the grassroots with his rally for support from traders in Lagos. Computer Village is his first port of call, and the traders turn out en masse as part of the unscheduled visit.
Anybody who doesn't vote for Obi this time is going on slave. Obi is for workers. When Yoruba marry, if you say if your wife is not good, go and marry another. Let us try another.
We need somebody like Peter Obi that is very young, that will do something for the country, that will help the nation. It's what we want for this country. Yes, I have my PVC. I'm supporting Obi. It's the first day I'm going to drop my PVC through.
Whatever the turnout is at the Computer Village, the number is even much more at Ladipo Spare Part Market in the Oshodi area of the state. The excitement on the faces of the traders is unmistakable, and they say their support is not for any immediate benefit.
He understands many things he can do for us. We want someone who will support us, someone who will make us achieve more good things in the country. Not someone that we don't understand the mind of the people.
Mr. Peter Obi's promise is to not dampen the hope in these people should he become president.
As I go around Nigeria, I see millions of Nigerians who are in pain and suffering, yet have all the hope for a country that will come to their aid. And my wish that I have opportunity of salvaging the situation.
The on-days turnout, which the traders claim is the least they can do to demonstrate their support, the promise to come out on Saturday, February the 25th, 2023, which will be much more important.
The first thing that we must understand is that given the fact that we have no structures and we have only about 4 children sat in a room somewhere tweeting away, from time to time, our candidate has had a need to remind those who are not on Twitter that they still have votes, which they must necessarily cast on the 25th of the month. This has, of course, seen us transversing the nooks and crannies of Nigeria. Mr. Gregory Peter Obi went as far as go to places where nobody has gone to campaign in years, places like Biu, places like Mubi, because there are Nigerians living there. So wherever Nigerians are, wherever they might live, before you might be related to someone, you must be able to see and feel their afflictions. So Mr. Obi has been going everywhere Nigerians are, however inconvenient or even sometimes pretty unsafe, like his trip to southern Borno, for instance, where he was told expressly by security people that they were unwilling to follow him because these were bandit and Boko Haram territory that they considered unsafe. And these are parts of Nigeria where Nigerians in their millions, thousands, they still live. They have to eke out a living in the parched land that has been abandoned by government itself. So he went to those places just as he went to Alaba Market, as we have pointed out, and just as he equally went to Computer Village. And he will continue. These are part and parcel of the attempt to continue to let Nigerians understand the critical nature of the coming election. I was, perhaps, I wouldn't call it privileged, but let me just say that I was constrained to sit down and watch the performance of the man who is speaking for this current government and the one that is looking to take over from it. And these performances are sufficient to educate Nigerians as to the fact that elections have consequences. And I thank channels for giving us this, despite all the network challenges you had in the course of that. So essentially, we are focused, both the candidate ourselves speaking for him, average Nigerian who understands what are at stake, the things that are at stake in this election, we're simply focused on taking our messages to Nigerians. Elections have consequences. You must vote for competence above ethnicity and religion. And yes, records matter. We have a 7.5-year record, almost 8 years record now, of course, of General Buhari. What we've watched this morning, the buck passing, the illustration of dysfunction in its worst form, where you are having, look, it's almost like we're sat on top of a refuse dump where we've all lost our senses of smell. So when people come around and as Goebbels begins to repeat nauseating things that should not be normalized to the point where they excuse it, dice it, cut it, Nigerians must become wiser. These are our own messages in the days. So people will be doing transfer signaling in the political market.
Let's stick with the Labour Party before we begin to go to national issues. Where you've recorded gains, there are also some records of losses. We've read in the papers how Southwest leaders have jettisoned your party. Their concern is that your party has no support base required to win the election. In fact, one of the quotes from one of the leaders of the party is to the extent that Labour Party cannot get up to 1,000 votes. How much damage has that done to your chances of harvesting votes in the southwestern region of the country?
The first thing that is embedded in the question you have asked is a complete misunderstanding of the nature of the Obi-Datti movement. You have a complete misunderstanding of it. The so-called Southwest leaders of the Labour Party who have decamped in what I was already explaining is the transfer market in the political season. Question you have to ask yourself is this: if somebody has come out to tell you that, oh, the Labour Party, that they are the Southwest leaders, is incapable of delivering more than 1,000 votes, then that tells you the quality of persons that they themselves are. The Labour Party of today is not the Labour Party of 6 months ago, before which all these ones that position themselves as career politicians who sell party tickets. That explains the problem the Labour Party has across the length and breadth of the Southwest, particularly where Jagaban PLC has always planted these people so that they act as surrogates in election time. When somebody has lost the party ticket, either that was in AC, ACN, or in this APC, they conveniently fly to the Labour Party of yesteryears. But that Labour Party is already giving way to a new Labour Party. So what the Labour Party you see today is not unlike the old NADECO, where people with disparate interests but who share the same strategic objectives come together because there is a pressing need to effect change, to change the direction of the country. We've all had to perhaps scale down our expectations in some ways, learn to, because we cannot build coalitions. How do you go about the business of having a revolution? And make no mistake about it, the Nigeria we have today is one that demands that we must give up our personal interest, make sure that we focus our attention and our entire energies on rescuing the country. We can have our ideological squabbles later on, but that is as it relates to the Labour Party of today. The persons you are talking about, who are they? Exactly how many people have they? I don't even know the name of a single one of these persons. I am a typical case in point. I speak for the Obi presidential campaign. I'm not a member of the Labour Party. I'm a member of Afenifere. Afenifere is an integral part of the Obi presidential project. Now, in the Southwest, Afenifere says it is speaking for a presidential candidate. The same Afenifere that some people who are so desperate to gain his endorsement that they were busy acting movies in Akure. That same Afenifere now says is standing behind a person, and that person is the person it considers worthy of support in this electoral cycle, and it places its credibility and demands for restructuring of Nigeria, which is a lodestone of Yoruba demand. And he then says that this is the person that we are supporting, and then you are talking about some Southwest leaders of Afenifere and of Labour Party.
Of Labour Party. Mr. Motosho, it's interesting that you don't know these individuals. They are members of your party. There's a certain Omotosho that is named in the report. But if you don't know, if you claim not to know these individuals, we'll have to take your word for it as one of the leaders of the Labour Party. But you talked about rescuing. You talked about rescuing Nigeria. Let's make progress.
I'm sorry. You misrepresented the fact, and I need to correct you. Number one, I have made clear I am not a member of the Labour Party. I am a member of Afenifere. Afenifere is part of the Obi presidential project. Let's be clear about that. Now, I equally make efforts to let you understand that in the Obi presidential project, there are several interest groups whose overarching interest is the salvation of Nigeria and the liberation of its people, who have come together. This is not only Afenifere, this is PANDEF, this is Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, this is Ohaneze Ndigbo, and this is all the separate and different nationalities that has been meeting under SMBLF, coming together to say, this is the person we believe will fulfill our aspirations. These are not persons who are ordinarily members of the Labour Party, but they've come into the Labour Party because that is where Obi is, and that is where we've all found a political platform for the actualization of the emergency situation in which we are, which is rescue this country.
So, Mr. Farotimi, does that then say, just a quick one on that, does that then say that there is a political arrangement of sorts between the Labour Party and the Afenifere and PANDEF and the rest of it that you just mentioned? Is there any kind of arrangement, formal or informal?
Between who and who?
Between Afenifere and all of that and the Labour Party, because Mr. Obi is not on the ballot as himself. He is on the ballot as a candidate of the Labour Party. So what's the arrangement?
Look, as I see, if you are working in a coalition, there must be a common interest. The common interest for everybody, including the Labour Party, which is working in tandem with the Obi campaign, is that Nigeria needs to be rescued. Now, that is without prejudice to the fact that there are operatives within the Labour Party itself who had been there long before Obi became a candidate of the party, and who had been there for reasons best known to themselves, perhaps positioning themselves for today's political transfer season. Because I cannot understand how a person stays within a party. He says it's the South. They say they are the Southwest leaders, and the same persons come out to say that they have a good candidate like Peter Gregory Obi to sell, and they are so impotent at doing this job that they self-indict themselves and tell you that they can only come up with 1,000 votes.
Mr. Farotimi, I'd like you to please, conclude on that arrangement. What's the political arrangement between these interest groups that you talk about?
There is no political arrangement. That's the point I'm making to you. When you talk about a political arrangement, you're suggesting that these people have some special interest over and above that of the average Nigerians. No. We all identified over 2 years ago that there are critical issues plaguing Nigeria and that these issues needed to be tackled. We came out with our position publicly. I'm talking about the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, which comprises of Ohaneze, Afenifere, PANDEF, and the Middle Belt Forum. All four, we came together over 2 years ago, and we were speaking publicly to the need for power shift. After a point, we also came together. We spoke to the need for power to shift for the sake of equity and justice to the Southeast. All this time, nobody was focusing on Peter Obi. So we had already taken a position, and when we found the person who fit the bill in relation to competence, who fits the bill in relation to equity, who fits the bill in relation to justice, who fits the bill in understanding the need to take another look at the governance of this country and make it work for the Nigerian people. We as a collective supported him. He was in Labour Party, so of course, we went into the party with him, not necessarily as card-carrying members of the Labour Party, but in recognition of the fact that the Labour Party presents an opportunity and a platform for the actualization of these ideals that we had been speaking to all these years. Good. If he had remained in the PDP, maybe not, we may or may not have supported him. He may or may not be the ones we would even have been supporting. But today, based on the realities, the objective realities on the ground, he is in the Labour Party. Okay, well,
let's speak to a hypothetical Peter Obi presidency. What would be the role of an Afenifere, of a Pandef and all of that in the political arrangement or governance arrangements? Since you went in there because, as you said, there is an interest about rebuilding Nigeria.
It's a fair question to ask. Our belief is that we would operate, and I have come out publicly to say this, even on your channel, we are not in this looking for political posts, but we are in this believing that Nigeria needs and requires change. So if a Gregory Peter Obi should win the presidency, we intend to hold him to each and every one of the words he has given to the Nigerian people in relation to the governance of Nigeria.
The question then is how will that happen? Yes.
The highest office in the land, in this country today, or in any country that will progress, is the office of the citizen. We are citizens of Nigeria. We have not done a political deal saying give us this number of offices. We intend to remain in our space as citizens of Nigeria and hold him accountable to his words. He has given his words in public. He is the most interviewed presidential candidate in the history of this country. He has placed himself out there. He's gone out there. He has words that he has spoken in the public spaces. These words must count for something. In speaking those words, he wasn't speaking to Afenifere or to Dele. He was speaking to me, Dele Farotimi, when he's speaking on your channel, when he's speaking to the people in your clip, in the market, he's speaking to Nigerians. It is the words that he has given that we intend to hold him to. And if he fails to deliver on those words, it is our intention to make sure that we oppose him or anyone else who do not live by their words that they have freely given to Nigeria.
Speaking of his ability to deliver, I'm glad you situated, the context of the participation of Pandef, Afenifere, and the other groups in the identification with the Labour Party and its presidential candidate. And you talked about, the need for equity and justice to, have the presidency emerge from the Southeast this time around. In relation to that, some would say that you would know what a person would do by what he had done in the past. And some would say in relation to that, your candidate's exit from APGA and the lack of consensus in the Southeast as we speak today on a Southeast presidency doesn't particularly give one cause for optimism about, his ability to unify Nigeria or even the possibility of his emergence on the ticket.
You are falling victim to the danger of the one-sided narrative. In the first place, Nigeria is a place where political parties have not developed along the lines of ideology. It's always been that political parties, unfortunately, in Nigeria today, are essentially platforms for the contestation of elections. Now, Mr. Gregory Peter Obi wanted to be governor of Anambra State to make a change. The PDP was the behemoth running riot in the political space in the Southeast and had been in place since 1999. APGA was a minority party, but he joined that party because that was the party that offered the platform for engagement with the people. He gained power as an APGA governor, and he remained an APGA governor until the end of his tenure. Now, in ruling in Anambra State, he had to deal with a House of Assembly completely peopled by PDP people. I will leave out that history because it's not relevant, but you know it. He survived that. He spent his time working for the people, and he built a legacy of integrity and service. That is the basis upon which the like of me can engage with him today. Now, when you speak to the fact that there are divisions in the Southeast, that there might be no unanimity of support for him, I'll remind you that I'm a Yoruba man. My mother is from Fiditi in Oyo. My father is from Imesile in Ijesha land. Nobody is more Yoruba than me. And yet, I am here speaking clearly, particularly against the candidacy of the person called Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Let's be clear, this is not about tribe. It's about Nigeria. The fact that not enough of us have owned Nigeria, but more of us have owned our tribes and our religion is the reason why Nigeria is in the mess that it is in today. The Southeast is not going to be monolithic. There will be people in the Southeast who will not support Peter Obi, and that's their prerogative. There would also be people in the Southwest who will not support Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That's our prerogative, and that's as it should be. There has rarely ever been a point in time where there has been a tribal consensus in this third republic about leaving power for anybody. We are not concerned about tribal consensuses. We took our position based on the justice and equity of the situation. What the Southeast does as a bloc is entirely up to the citizens who comprises of the Southeast. We have taken our own positions based on what we believe is best for Nigeria. We believe our Ndigo brothers and sisters would equally do what is necessary on the 25th of February. But we have taken our positions based on conscience and conviction.